told somebody in the comments this multiple times, but I have had this Invader Zim hoodie for 10 years, and it was a gift. Yes, it's from Hot Topic. Pretty sure you still see Invader Zim merchandise there. Anyways, it has been a couple years since I actually watched it all the way through. First time I watched it was in high school, and actually, no, I was introduced to it in 8th grade. Yeah, the first time I watched it through was high school. I was introduced to it in 8th grade. I remember this from being a kid, but I wasn't interested in it as a little kid. I wasn't scared by it, because I don't think this show would have scared me as a kid. More so later. But I remember the one thing I saw about it as a kid was when aliens are knocking on Zim's door and they insist he's human because he announced it in class, and then he says to them, "I was lying." That was very funny, thinking back on it. I wasn't really laughing at that as a kid for some weird reason. Anyways, funny thing about Invader Zim, it is so dark and so bleak. I'm actually quite surprised that it aired on Nickelodeon. I think this was before Adult Swim. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. When did Adult Swim really get started? Actually, you know what? I'm going to look it up right now so I can correct myself. Adult Swim, when did that start? Because it seems like more of an Adult Swim show. Okay, 2001. It was founded in 2001, and Invader Zim was before that. Yep, March 30th, 2001, and yeah, this Invader Zim came a few months before Adult Swim did. I feel like it could have been the Rick and Morty of its time because of the animation style, because of how bleak it was, and considering how much merchandise the show still has and how popular it still is. I get compliments whenever I wear this outside, and I like this show. I'm definitely not as obsessed with it as others, but I do appreciate it. It definitely has its 90s weird. There's times it's a little too dark even for me, and I do love black comedy. Granted, as an adult, I'm specifically thinking of Dark Harvest, which is the episode where Zim steals his classmates' organs and replaces it with stuff. I like slasher films, but body horror, I can't do. Too much for me. So that was a scary episode, and of course that's the one I remember. But there is a surrealness to the show. It definitely has its 90s weird to it, but on the dark end of it. It's definitely, I'd say, the other end of something like SpongeBob. Because SpongeBob has this weird, surreal humor to it. And Invader Zim is much the same thing, but the dark and bleak version of it. It is still beautiful to look at, Invader Zim. It is stunning animation. I really like the colors specifically, because those bright purples, I like that emo kid purple. I'm such a big fan of those magentas. They're so beautiful and they're so vibrant. They pop so much. Actually gives me a bit of a Billy and Mandy vibe. Billy and Mandy, when I think of that, I think more blues and greens, but this has these really nice purples and magentas, and this purple and green don't usually go together, but they do so well in this show. I love it. It still moves really, really nicely. The designs are very unique. They're very simplified. I was one of those high schoolers who was into Gurr. Was that kid. Nowadays, I think I like Dib a lot more. Of the cast, I relate to him the most. Just the obsession with something no one else sees and a tendency to piss everyone off. That's about right. So, of course, they have a very codependent rivalry, which is always fun to watch. And yeah, it's silly, it's dark, it's weird. Supposedly, the creator himself says it's supposed to be just sarcasm, violence, and cruelty. Be curious to know what goes on in that guy's head. But you know what? I feel like whenever you say that, I think the best way to get inside a creator's head is to see what they do with their creative freedom. I know he had a lot of difficulties with Nickelodeon over the show, and there were a lot of production issues with Invader Zim. But clearly the fans still want more. I was looking at some of the stuff online, what they would have planned had the show not been canceled, and they had some really interesting story arcs. I know they're coming back with that movie. I don't know if they're getting a revival. But seriously, this is an Adult Swim show that somehow got aired on Nick, and quite frankly, I'm impressed. It is a fascinating show. And most of this is off my own memories of the show. I definitely remember Dark Harvest the best, but I also remember the Career Day episode. I remember Zim getting a pimple. Oh, Zim eats waffles. I like that one a lot. But the first time I watched it, that was the one I really liked because of how silly and anticlimactic and over the top it was. Actually, from the voice is, okay, all the voice actors are very good. They fit the designs very well. They have really funny inflections, and it doesn't sound like they're trying to do voices, but the timing and the inflections really adds to the tone and the silliness of the show. So overall, I think, well, it can be a little dark even for me sometimes. Like I said, Dark Harvest, think of that one. I do appreciate the silliness and the satire and its comedy. I guess what I like about it is that there's a rage to it, and I tend to like rage a lot. It doesn't feel... Okay, yeah, it kind of does. It does feel like there was such an anger behind it. But there's an intelligence to its anger. I think it captures that I am surrounded by insanity or stupidity. Notice it seemed to be a thing in the 90s. Daria, since I rewatched that, had a lot of that same frustration going on. Clearly that's who was making shows in the 90s, yes. Actually, there's a ton of different personalities who make shows. But yes, Invader Zim, still popular even to this day.